Many men have nothing to smile about. Been broke down, too proud to cry it out. Walk a mile in my boots and you know what I'm about. I took some licks and I took some hits and I found out them bones can actually break sticks. But them words are powerful as shit.
Hello there, and welcome to Let the Paint Dry. As always, it is a privilege and an honor to be here in the studio in Tacoma and to come with whatever's on our hearts. And so welcome to Let the Paint Dry. We always start with an opening song, some sort of improv, so we'll get right into it. Whoa, 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 whoa. Hey, oh, we ground ourselves in the truth. We ground ourselves in the earth. We stay connected. I said, I've been working on my heart. I said, I've been working on my heart. I said, I've been working on my mind. Oh, I've been praying all night long. I said, I've been praying all night long. I've been praying for you to make it. I said, I've been praying for you to make it. Oh, I've been praying for you to make it. I know you've been through some valleys, and I know you've been through some dark days when it was too dark to pray. But the Spirit and divinity, it heard the moanings of your soul when those nights were too dark to cry. I said, I've been praying for you to make it. I said, I've been praying for you to make it to the other side. To the other side. To the other side. To the other side. 'Cause I've been praying for you. 'Cause I can't share some dark days. Yeah, that gets us grounded. It gets us right. We get in our bodies, and that's what this is about. That's what Let the Paint Dry is about, and this podcast and this journey, this whole journey. And here we are. We're in 2021. We have to name that, right? We made it. We made it. And, it's still early. And I know there's probably a lot of maybe PTSD from 2020. There's a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, a lot still in our bodies. But hopefully we can spend this first month cleansing spiritually, cleansing our business, cleansing our lives, maybe a rebirth, maybe a resurrection. I feel like for me, I'm going through a resurrection, like a personal resurrection. And that's what came through as I was driving in, was like everything that's been happening for the last 2 years has been this resurrection process. And I didn't recognize it until this morning, until I looked at it and started kind of taking inventory of what has happened in the last 2 years, just in my personal life. And this year, I don't really, as you've heard me say before, I don't really put a lot of emphasis on December, the last month of December and the first month of January, because for me, the shift started, a shift in my body and my spirit started in December of looking at my divine masculinity. And I've been working around masculinity and understanding toxic masculinity and masculinity in general and men in general. And I show up as a straight black man and I accept all of that. And I'm pretty clear that's what I am. Sometimes people can be in a space of flux. For me, it's not a space of flux. So I really embrace that and really dig down in that work and really started looking at the divine masculinity. What is your purpose as a man when you show up as a man with masculine traits? And what does that mean? And so for me, it's been a journey of understanding that being a man, there are certain privileges that you have. And then it gets really weird for a black man because there are certain things that are denied to you very specifically and a lot of trauma around that. And we're working through that and working through all that healing. But as we stay in our bodies, one of the things that I've been doing for me that has been a powerful centering and grounding is to refrain from masturbation. And that has led me to a place to stay in my body and to take control of my divine masculinity. And we live in a very over-sexualized world, and I'm not judging any of that. I'm not critiquing that. This is a personal thing that I'm choosing to do with my masculinity. I support sex workers. I've supported sex workers in the past. I've had sex workers support me. And I think it's an important part of our culture and something that we haven't had enough nurturing around. So I feel like I want to put that as a caveat. But I also realize that we are in a sexual revolution in our world for the last maybe 30 years. The internet's only about 16 years old, a little more. So with the internet, with access to sexualized content, videos, images being at our access, that shifted our culture. And that shifted men, and that shifted how we look at sexuality, how we look at our own sexuality. And I don't know if it was really conscious. And so when you're engaging in all of that, a lot of things are opened up that are in this kind of fantasy world. And we need that fantasy world to escape pain because we're trying to heal pain and we're trying to soothe pain. So I've been working with this trying to understand this for about 2 years. And so that's one of the things that I'm really embarking on practicing, and I really enjoy it. I enjoy the centering of myself and the reprogramming of my brain and the kind of like rechanneling my life energy, my masculine life energy to birth the projects that I need to birth the things that I need to do by keeping that to yourself and understanding that it's sacred. And I think so many times men have not been told that they are sacred. They have not been told they're precious because so many times we have been pressured at our tender ages to only show up in about 2 different dimensions. So we show up as either sarcastic or we show up as, I'm going to use the word macho or, aggressive. And you see boys that relate to each other many times don't know how to access certain emotions because they'll be labeled as weak, labeled as feminine, which, as masculine as I am very much feminine. There's a feminine side to all of us and a masculine side to all of us. And that has been demonized. You've heard the phrase, "Oh, you hit like a girl," and so that says such a very violent statement that it is something wrong with being a girl, right? So as I sort through this is just surface level. We haven't even got into the deep stuff yet. And I don't know if we will. This is just what's on my heart today. And this is what's on my mind today. So when we start digging through our masculinity and the divine purpose of our masculinity and divine mission, for me, it gets very powerful, and it gets down to the most intimate details of my life and the most kind of like private areas of my life, and that practice in those private places become a public manifestation of who I am and how I show up and how I can serve. And so one of the things that I think masculinity is good at is protecting and serving. But it gets really, really toxic if you do not take time to sit with your femininity and to understand your femininity within you. And this may be uncomfortable for some people, may fly past you, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. This is my journey, and I think it's really important to share it. And it's important to look at ourselves as sacredly masculine and a preciousness and a value, because my experience has not my masculine aggressive traits have not been valued, and my feminine traits have not been valued. And I see that across the board with other men that I talk to, that we have not been valued, and we don't know how to really value ourselves. Sometimes we say, "Oh, I have too much self-respect for myself," but and I'm not going to critique that and say that's wrong. But many times when I dig deeper, no one's ever told that man he's precious and needs to be held, and he's sacred and he's important and he's worthwhile. It just gets so narrow where men can show up. And men struggle with communicating with each other. I have so many times that I'll communicate with men, and it's so difficult to get to any place of vulnerability, any place of truth. It's this very exterior, I'm fine. I'm taking, I've heard people say, they never want to go deep. Other men never want to go deep with you, never want to sit with you with where you really are. And they never want to expose where they really are if they're scared or they're struggling, because being scared and crying are something that men have not been allowed to do. And that right there will have major health consequences in your body. Whether you know it or not, you're going to hold all of that in a toxic place. Our body is meant to cry. It is meant to feel fear. It is meant to be vulnerable. We are designed for all of those things. And when we deny ourselves from those things, we're rerouting things in our brain and we're cutting ourselves off, and that stuff stays in our body. So this is the journey that I'm on, and my art practice has a lot to do with it. As I explore in my art practice, I explore the femininity in me, and I explore the masculine in me. And that seems to come through quite a bit. It's like masculine, some sort of representation through a painting, or deeply feminine, and then animals, and that's all that comes through. So I might be a little limited as an artist, but that's what's happening right now, and we're working through that. We're working through this understanding of self and finding our place under the sun as an artist. And this podcast is a archive and a kind of like writing. We're like writing right now. We're documenting. We're sorting out our thoughts on this, because this is something. Well, I've talked a little bit about this in the last few days, but I didn't know I was going to talk about it this morning until Last night it was kind of certain things were sitting on my chest and becoming apparent, and then coming in, just sitting with the idea of I'm going through a resurrection. So I'm going a rebirth, and with a rebirth, or I look at it more as a resurrection, because one man has to die for another man to be born, for that resurrection to happen. And the only example I have is kind of the biblical story of Jesus' resurrection. And that's what I feel, that an old man had to die. The old me had to die away, had to disappear, had to let, and it was a process of me letting go of things that I thought were valuable, things that I thought were important, constructs that were given to me from society, from my parents, and really looking deep inside my body with what worked for me inside my body, like what resonates. And so how I tell what works inside my body is there are certain situations that bring me great anxiety. And I have learned to identify where those sit in my body. So when I'm anxious, a lot of times it'll sit in my chest right here. And so there's times where I'll physically rub my chest just to loosen up that anxiety and identify. And by talking to myself, going, Travis, you are anxious, and it's sitting in your chest, and then asking that anxiety to go away, because it's not necessarily true. There may be a real thing that I'm anxious about, and that may be real, but there may not be that much of a need to be anxious over whatever the thing is. And then a lot of times betrayal or shame or anger sits in my throat, and I feel a tightness in my throat. I feel a tightness in my throat when I'm not seen, when I'm not heard, or I feel muffled or dismissed. And then anger a lot of times also sits in this area right here. Excuse me for getting in front of the mic. And so just working through my body with where it sits and understanding where does it come from, tracing it back to my childhood, my mom, my dad. They gave me all the things that I'm dealing with, the good, bad, the ugly. They made me and programmed me to be this way. So some things you have to reprogram, some things you can utilize, some things you have to let go of. And that gets that resurrection. And you become, for me, it's a journey of becoming a new man. And it's not something that I like consciously set out to do. Like, I want to become a new man. It's something that I'm noticing that is happening. And it feels bigger than me. It feels like something that is beyond me. Like it feels to me like it's the ancestors. It's my inner truth guiding me to become a new man. And I share this journey if it can be of value to somebody, maybe, and if not, that's okay. Because this podcast is really, I do it very selfishly and for myself first, absolutely, very unapologetically, and I think that's with art. You have to do it, and this is an art. You have to do it for yourself first. And I think selfishness gets demonized maybe a little bit too much, because you can only give what you have. You can't give something you don't have. So you have to give to yourself first. And a lot of people have said that, but I found it to be true. And it's a practice that I'm embracing. To part of restraining from masturbating is not to give yourself to other things, not to give. And it's not a religious thing for me. It's really just centering yourself and grounding yourself in your sacredness, and grounding yourself in every ounce of you to be given to the right thing and the right ritual and the right portal. And the same thing with my art and my time and my energy. It's like you want it to be given in the right place and valued. That's a part of valuing yourself, is you don't give to something that doesn't value, and that's to me, like a whole nother skill, to understand what things to give to that actually to be able to have that recognition skill of, this is something I need to give myself to. And this affects your business. This affects your marriage, whatever kind of partnership you have. It affects your family, your life, everything. And to me, it makes me, this kind of awareness makes me more cognitive. Yeah, we'll go with that. It makes me more aware of how I move in the world and how I give to people, and how I'm showing up, and am I able to give real value? And that's the goal. And sometimes we miss the mark, and that's okay. It's okay to miss the mark. It's okay to make mistakes, as long as I think we learn from it and use it to progress and move ourselves forward and to just be the best version of ourselves. I know that's said a lot and maybe played out, but to better ourselves, to pour into ourselves, because only good can come from that. So that's what's on my heart. That's what's on my mind. Just looking at saving my life energy and looking at my body as a community, and like it's your body is, and I believe my body is a enormous amount of little things that make up a big thing, and all of your cells and all of your bacteria, the good bacteria, the bad bacteria, are citizens in that, and you're caring for those citizens, and you're keeping out the bad things that don't need to be in your body. And that's on a physical level, a spiritual level, and a cosmic level. And that's what I'm walking in, and that's what I'm exploring as an artist and as a human. And I'm very happy with the results so far. Very happy with that. So I think this is a good place to do a song and make it maybe something kind of, I'm feeling more meditative. Norongira morori more moriragu morori nyare do de dee 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 So we got an email yesterday that we'll be back in the Leo Gallery in Olympia in February. We're going to do drawings is what I initially set out to do, but this morning I'm actually thinking maybe paintings as well. So we'll see. What I submitted to them and proposed was some really large drawings that I did last year in the spring, I think it was. And they haven't really seen the light of day. So we're going to the goal is to print them bigger. So hopefully all this goes through and you'll see it. And I'll be able to post it on social. You can follow me at Travis Johnson Studios on Instagram. And then my link for my Facebook usually is plugged in this podcast. And then travisjohnsonart.squarespace.com. I believe I said that right. I think if you look that up, you'll get to it. And we're going to continue to work on shows this year as it's safe in the world with the pandemic. We're still working on, I think I've said this on the podcast, we're working on working on New York. We have a gallery that we're talking to there, and more galleries out here, more gallery shows. And I've been thinking about a performance type of show that is friendly, COVID friendly, where we're inside, but the speakers are outside on the street. And it's kind of free form. So long as you stay pretty far away from each other, you can see it. So that's something I've been thinking about. Still working through all those details. Our sponsorship program, the sponsors for last year, I'm so grateful for every sponsor. We have Guardian Roofing for this month of January, and we have sponsorship open for February and March and April. So anybody that wants to get on that, jump in it. If this resonates with you and you feel called to support me through sponsorship or buying art, and we're gonna have a Patreon coming as well. All of that is pouring into this thing that we're building, and it's very raw. It's very improv. It's you see what it is. So if that resonates with you and you want to get on board with that, feel free to reach out to me. And we're gonna have a bunch more art coming on our website. We have a lot of pieces up now, so check that out. What else is there that I need to cover? That's pretty much it. Go do work that matters. Walk in love. Love yourself first, or you can love the world and your family and your community. Let the paint dry.